Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janet Hadley, and I am definitely not an alcoholic. So how do I know that I'm not an alcoholic? Well, it's easy. I stopped drinking 5 years ago. I haven't drunk alcohol at all since then, so I'm definitely not addicted to alcohol. I also stopped smoking when I was in my 20s, so I'm not addicted to cigarettes. But it's really strange because nobody ever says, that Janet Hadley, she had to stop smoking, you know. She got addicted. But I know that when I tell people that I've stopped drinking alcohol, there is a look. It's a very interesting difference. So when you quit smoking, people give you a high five, say, well done, made a great choice for your health and well-being. If you quit sugar or go on a diet and lose some weight, could do with doing that myself, people will, again, congratulate you on making a healthy choice for yourself and your family. But if you tell them that you've quit drinking, you can see, whew, is she an alcoholic? And then there's almost a bit of, well, I drink, so am I an alcoholic? Well, I once did dry January. Well, I nearly did it. So I'm not that bad, and I'm not an alcoholic. Whew. And do you know what they always say to me? I don't really drink that much. That is the most common thing that people say to me when I say I don't drink alcohol. They sort of go, I don't really drink that much. It's really funny. And obviously what is happening here, and the reason why I'm talking about it, is what I'm talking about is stigma. There are topics that are highly, highly stigmatized, and addiction is one of them. And the reason why stigma exists is quite interesting. So having done a bit of research into this, what I've learned is that stigma is actually our brain's very, very quick evolutionary way of sorting people into groups. So it's really useful for us as humans to sort ourselves into groups that we belong to and groups that we don't belong to. And we do it all the time without really noticing it. It's very useful from an evolutionary point of view to understand the groups that you belong to. So in the hunter-gatherer days, you quickly being able to understand which of the people around you are going to help you if you have a baby, and which are going to attack your tribe is really, really useful. And it keeps you safe. And it's very comfortable for us to understand which groups we belong to and which ones we don't belong to. But stigma has a downside as well. And I think we can probably argue that we've evolved enough now to start putting this quick grouping of people to one side and think a little bit more deeply about it. And what stigma does is it prevents us from talking about uncomfortable topics. It really prevents us from bringing some of the things that we need to talk about out into the open. And it keeps things underground, and it creates shame, and it creates really what I would call bad vibrations. But thanks to the work of a lot of people, probably within this room, the leaders of businesses, some of our brilliant HR teams, our diversity and inclusion teams, I have noticed that over the last 20 years, plus 4 actually, 24 years that I've been working, workplaces have become the best place to activate anti-stigma activities. When I started working at Asda, if I had a mental health crisis, I would not tell anybody. I would have a couple of weeks off with some kind of tummy bug, and I would not tell anybody that I was feeling rock bottom. There is no way I would do that now, because mental health has been brought onto the agenda by these leadership teams, and we've destigmatized it. We've destigmatized it by talking about it. And if we look at other taboo topics, depression, mental health, menopause even, I mean, who would have thought that the white middle-aged man in my team would, when we were talking about menopause, stick his hand up and say, oh, I know loads about this because my wife went through early menopause and teach us all lots of things that we didn't know before. That would not have happened 20 years ago. And things are really changing, and it's for the better. But there's still quite a lot of taboo topics. So there will be people in your teams back at the office who are dealing with issues that they do not feel they can talk about. So it could be alcohol addiction, it could be drug addiction, it could be an eating disorder, it could be gambling, it could be sexual assault that someone has experienced or someone in their families. coercive control, children who are gender transitioning. We live in a culture where we still have topics that we can't discuss, or we feel that we're somehow responsible for these things having happened within our lives, and that if we tell the people at work what's happening, that they're going to think less of us for it. And I believe that workplaces are the number one place for us to change that. The other problem with stigmatizing and putting people into groups of two simple groups is it's a huge oversimplification. So if we go back to alcohol, if I ask you two groups of people relating to alcohol, you'd probably say normal drinkers and alcoholics. That's how you quickly divide people. But nobody has ever gone from being a normal drinker to an alcoholic overnight, ever. That has never happened, I can guarantee you. Every single person who has become addicted to alcohol has gone through a huge grey area in between. And you might be surprised to learn that if you want to know what an emerging alcohol issue looks like, forget the park benches and the people who've woken up in a skip, have a look at your board. That is what an emerging alcohol issue is more likely to look like. Someone who is well paid, attends a lot of social events with work, can afford nice wine, and has an increasing habit of going home and pouring themselves a glass of that nice wine, which is exactly where I found myself. So about 7, 8 years ago, I was working at Co-op in a senior management job, having all the things. I'm a mum of triplets, of course. I always have to go one better than everybody else. Sorry to all the people with twins. I am a piano player, grade 8, obviously, all the things. I've got a really nice house in a nice area. My kids go to a really good school. I've got a nice car. I've got a great life. I am the having it all woman, the annoying having it all woman. However, I was going home every single night and pouring myself a glass of wine. And we don't need to talk about the size of the glass, but you get the picture. I was also looking after one of the biggest transformational projects in Europe. So Co-op was spending just shy of £300 million putting in a new IT system. And although I wasn't over the whole project, I was in charge of the supplier readiness, which was a huge, huge task, a huge task. We also had some significant challenges. Without boring you with retail detail, if you're not in retail, we were 10th out of 10 retailers in a very important survey that measures our compliance to regulation. So that wasn't great either, and we were under investigation by the regulator. So I had quite a lot on my plate. And just going back to my drinking, I wanted a picture of Zoe Ball and Sarah Cox here, but we didn't have the license, so you've got this random 90s picture. But I'm a child of the 90s. I grew up in the 90s. Like, who here was out and about clubbing in the 90s? I can see some of you, definitely. If you've got teenagers now, I don't think they would survive a night out in the 90s. Honestly, they were wild. So me, drinking the amount I was drinking was completely normal. I grew up watching Zoe Ball and Sarah Cox falling out of taxis and trying to be a little bit more like them because they were fun. So my drinking wasn't a problem. It was fun. It was sociable. It was great. It was something I enjoyed. It was something I looked forward to, just part of my personality. In fact, when I told my friend Charlotte that I was stopping drinking, she said, "But you will still drink at Christmas, won't you?" So there you go. I think I was the unpaid entertainment, to be fair. And then something really, really terrible happened. So this is my triplets and my husband. And as you can see, he's in a wheelchair. So I found out on a Thursday afternoon, out of the blue, I had a phone call from my husband who said, "Can you come home? I've got a brain tumour." And after I'd picked myself up off the floor and told him off for not telling me that he'd been going for any scans, started to really understand the meaning of the word devastation, I think, for the first time. It was like the whole bottom fell out of my world. So I've been with my husband since I was 20. I'm 47 now. I think we're codependent, is how I'd describe it. And I've never been an adult without him, and suddenly I was faced with the prospect of potentially losing him within a year or two. Now, I need to just say at this point, he is still alive, and he's doing really well. He's against the odds, without a doubt. But I didn't know that that was going to happen. And he went and had 2 major craniotomies within 3 months, and he was in a wheelchair. He couldn't walk afterwards. He can walk now. He can run, in fact. But I had 3, as you can see, fairly young children. They were 13 at the time. And my goodness me, I just did not cope well at all, to be honest. I went to the only coping mechanism that I knew, and my drinking started to really change. So I was getting up in the morning, waking up with a hangover, and deciding I'm not going to drink tonight. I'll do the school run, take the kids off, log on, do a bit of work, go to the hospital, see my husband, come back, do a bit more work, pick the kids up, make tea, take them to the hospital to see their dad, come home, and on the way home I'd be like, kids, we need some milk. We don't need milk. I need to stop at Tesco because I'm going to get a bottle of wine. But we need milk. They're like, I'm sure we've got milk, Mum. No, we haven't. I'll just get a bottle of wine while I'm here. Go home, drink the bottle of wine. Obviously, put the kids to bed first, but drink the whole bottle of wine. So possibly walk to the little Tesco on the corner and buy another one. Wake up with a hangover, repeat. It was horrific. And I couldn't believe that this was happening to me. And it took me a long time to put my hand up and ask for some help with what was happening to me. But I was properly developing an alcohol dependency out of what had previously been quite a fun relationship with alcohol. It's not something I expected to happen to me. I felt ashamed. I felt as though I couldn't ask for help because people might think I'm an alcoholic. I felt like I couldn't stop drinking because people would think I was an alcoholic, which is a really crazy thing to say, but it is also true because now I have stopped drinking. People do think I'm an alcoholic, but the difference is I don't care. But I was in a bad place. And so what changed? This is another another picture of my kids, being cooperative, on brand, of course, at the Peaky Blinders, but it was my kids. So I was meant to do something with them one evening, and instead of doing the activity, I basically sat and drank a bottle of wine, and they could see me drinking it. And Evie said to me, I wish you would be a better role model for us, Mummy. And I was like, ugh. I feel like I've been knifed. It was awful. I just thought, do you know what? I got up in the morning and I sent a note to an alcohol counsellor who I'd already researched and I knew I wanted to see. And I sent a note that said something like, my husband has a brain tumour. I don't know how long he's going to live. I've got triplets. I've got a really stressful job and I can't stop drinking every night. Please, can you help me? And he was like, I'll ring you in 10 minutes. And that is where, I asked for help and I received it. And then taking it back into the workplace, all of this, I was managing so much with the transformation project and with the team. But what I just did is I just recognized that I needed a break, and I took a proper break from work. I took, I think, 12 weeks off in the end, and actually had some time to myself and some time to heal and some time to go to therapy and some time to just put myself back together again. And I just delegated everything. And when I came back after 12 weeks, I told the truth about what had happened and where I'd been and what I'd been doing. And that vulnerability that I showed to my team went such a long way. It really was quite interesting, the difference that it made to them. So let's just fast forward a few years to where I am now. So I actually run a Sober Curious Society within the co-op, which is fun. So you don't have to be sober. No one has to stop drinking, don't worry. But if you are curious about stopping drinking, you can come along and chat to other people. We share stories, we have guest speakers, we've had authors, podcasters, all sorts of people. I've had emails from people saying, Janet, you've saved my life. I was going downhill with my drinking. You've saved my marriage. I've stopped drinking. I had one the other day, someone saying, I've been trying to get pregnant for 5 years, came to your Sober Curious Society, stopped drinking, I'm pregnant, I've never been happier. So that's been a really interesting and positive impact. I'm also the non-exec director of a company called the Sober Butterfly Collective, and I do lived experience talks in workplaces to raise funds for them. They're an amazing community interest company who organise alcohol-free social activities for people who just want to socialise without alcohol. And they've been a bit of a lifeline for me as well, because guess what? I thought I was going to lose all my friends and never have any fun ever again. Not true. The Sober Butterfly Collective is full of old lushies like me with some really good stories to tell. They are such a good laugh, but we just don't do that anymore. And what about the team? So this is a few of the team members. Well, the project's delivered. We've moved from 10th out of 10 in the retailer survey to first. And what I'm most proud of is we have a measure called Talkback, which you'll all have something similar in your teams. There's a question in there, and I'm going to read it. It's like, how likely would you be to recommend your line manager to other people working there? And I've had 100% for that every year for the past 5 years. I actually just got my results yesterday, and it was 100% again. So there is a lot of value in having an empathetic leadership style, speaking the truth. And why am I talking to you about all this? Because it's like, you know, how is this relevant to you guys in the workplace? I think it's really relevant because life is actually really tough. So some of you in the audience are probably too young to realize this yet. I don't think I realized in my 20s what was coming. Sorry, guys, but enjoy it while you're young. Because at some point, you will have what we call life events. You will have bereavements. You will have health scares. You will have relatives and friends who get cancer. You will, sorry, but you will. And you'll also have those unexpected phone calls on a Thursday afternoon where something has happened and the bottom falls out of your world and you just didn't see it coming. And they happen to all of us. Nobody gets out unscathed in this life. Nobody. And what people need at work is a safe place where they can come in and talk about these things. So in my team at the moment, I've got quite a small team as well. I've got somebody whose mum has been in hospital for over a year and is coming home soon, but she'll never walk again. I've got somebody else who has a husband who is addicted to alcohol and had a seizure at an airport, ruining a family holiday and is now in rehab. I've got someone who is a parent who's really struggling to come to terms with her child's decision to transition gender. And I've got a dad of a child who's been bullied at school and is self-harming. And as well as just normal day-to-day pressures of dealing with aging parents, kids struggling at school, or just keeping your head above water with the blimmin' laundry. I mean, we all know what that's like if you've got kids. So life is quite tough, actually. And as managers and leaders within organisations, we can help cushion that. We all need somewhere safe. We need a safe space. And creating a safe space in the workplace where people can talk openly, I believe, as a leader, is what my job is. I believe that if I can create the psychological safety for people to come into work, speak the truth about what's happening in their lives, get support, get that sort of pastoral part of the leadership role in spades from somebody who genuinely cares, they will walk through walls for you and they will do an amazing job for you. To lead is to listen, and it's to understand, and it's to empathise. It's not to offer sympathy. It's not, oh, you poor thing, that sounds awful. And it's not, unsolicited advice. So that happened to me, and this is what I did. None of that. It's empathy. It's this concept that even though I might not know exactly what it's like and what you're going through, I'm here to listen to you, and I'll try and help you in any way that you want me to. That, to me, is what leading with empathy is all about. So I just wanted to leave you with 3 actionable thoughts about things you can literally take home and do differently. The first one is about knowing your team well enough to know when something is different. I know my teams really well. I know the names of their children, their husbands. I know where they live. I know lots of things about them because I care about them and I talk to them and I listen to them. And I know when something's different. I can tell before they've told me that something isn't right. And that's important because I know that I need to make more time and more space and more privacy for them to open up to me. I don't need to ask them. I just create the right environment so that they tell me. The second one is for you to talk about taboo topics so that they can. I've shown quite a lot of vulnerability today talking about a taboo topic. You can do that as well. And the third one is to remember the power of sharing your own vulnerabilities through storytelling. We're all similar in the way that we're built, in that we like stories. We like listening to stories. You will have a story. You will have a story that you've never told your team that will show some vulnerability and show them that you're a real person with real problems who they can actually come to. Maybe consider just going back to the office and sharing one of your stories with your team and see what impact it has on performance. You might be surprised. And that is it from me. So thank you very much for listening.